considering the fact that the pay-per-view tonight is early, and in some cases ridiculously early, based on the time difference between us and Saudi Arabia, it was fitting, or it is fitting, for me to want to do the pay-per-view predictions a little bit earlier than normal, with the fact that the show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, begins at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So with that being said, let's break down what to expect from the previews of WWE Night of Champions. Excuse me. Starting with the Women's Championship match from SmackDown, Rhea Ripley versus Natalya. Basically, I think the ideal situation is that Rhea Ripley needed a veteran presence to help her a little bit, build a little bit of momentum, and that WWE didn't want to burn one of the top matches right out of the gate, so they gave her Natalya because they didn't want to burn one of the top matches right out of the gate. Which I understand, especially considering the fact that Money in the Bank is next month, and that they could tease a lot of potential matches with Money in the Bank being next month. But with the fact that Bianca Belair, on the other side of the coin, is how do I put it? In a more highly anticipated matchup with Asuka than the match with Natalya, it shows maybe Bianca has a little bit more momentum, which she does. But I think that if there was ever a time for Bianca to drop the belt, it would be tonight against Asuka. Rhea is still new in her title reign, and it is pretty obvious that Rhea Ripley is not going to lose. I do believe, though, that this is the first time in any Saudi Arabia card that WWE has 3 women's matches on the entire show. So props to WWE for bringing forward even the smallest change when it comes to Saudi Arabia shows, because I don't think we've ever seen more women's matches on a Saudi Arabia show than we're seeing tonight with Night of Champions. In my opinion, I think WWE should have held off Trish versus Becky until SummerSlam, or at least Money in the Bank. But that's just my opinion. I think they could have held it off until Money in the Bank if they really wanted to, but they wanted the big match for Saudi Arabia, so they rushed into it for Saudi Arabia. Because you could sit here and say, oh, well, they should have... it's not they rushed into it, it's not this, it's not that. No, they rushed into it because they didn't need to have it for Saudi Arabia. They wanted to have it for Saudi Arabia. There's a difference. They didn't need it for Saudi Arabia. They wanted it for Saudi Arabia. And I disagree with it, but that's just me. Because I think it would have been easy for the WWE to have it where they just didn't have Trish show up every week, number one, and number two, that they could have dragged it out till SummerSlam if they really wanted to, but clearly they didn't really want to. Otherwise, they would have. Clearly they didn't really want to, otherwise they would have. But I think if this is the only match, or the only time, that Trish and Becky are meeting, if this is the only time that Trish and Becky are meeting, then basically it is fair to say that Trish and Becky will have in my opinion, that unless something drastic happens, Trish and Becky will have the best match of the night from the women. That is, if Asuka does not beat Bianca Belair. If Asuka beats Bianca Belair, I think the Raw crowning a new women's champion would be also ideal. But that's just me. Um, I think WWE is about ready to jump the shark when it comes to Brock and Cody Rhodes, so they really need to have a spectacular match tonight. Like, I think, in my opinion, Brock and Cody have most of the pressure from tonight's show. Have more pressure from tonight's show than any other person at any other match on this card. Even the world title match between Seth and AJ Styles, which we'll get to in a second, that I don't think anybody has more pressure on them than Cody and Brock. But that's just my opinion. Brock, Becky and Trish have pressure, but Becky and Trish have every indication or every ability to live up to the expectation. To live up to the expectation, because outside of one match in the last 3 years or 2 years, however, Trish hasn't really been active. You know what I mean? And like I said, I think it is very likely that we will see solid matches, but if I had to say, Asuka, Rhea, Becky, Cody, Asuka, Rhea, Becky, Brock. As far as, the matches tonight are concerned. Thus far, I think that the Gunther versus Mustafa Ali match would be a nice change of pace for Gunther, with the fact that he's had hard-hitting affairs with McIntyre, with Sheamus, and that's just pretty much all he's had recently. So having a little, quick affair, sort of the likes that he did with Ricochet last year. I believe it was last year, or was it 2 years ago? I think it was last year. But sort of, having the sort of affair like he did with Ricochet would be nice for Gunther to shake things up a little bit for him as he moves into another leg of the race with his Intercontinental title reign. As far as the undisputed title, the tag team title, undisputed tag team titles, WWE does have an out. WWE does have an out when it comes to the undisputed tag team titles. And I know that some people might say, oh, well, Roman's going to win again. Roman's going to win again. They're not going to have Roman win the tag team titles, too. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to have Roman win the tag team titles, too. They're not going to do that to Kevin and Sami. They're not going to kill their momentum and have Roman defeat them, too. Because you have many outs as far as Kevin and Sami winning that WWE will probably execute with. Or I hope so, because I hope WWE is smart enough to see that, especially with the fact that the Tribal Chief is set to work less dates over the next couple of months, that having him win the tag team titles would be a mistake. But putting him in this match and continuing to show the cracks within the bloodline, would be something that is ideal, I guess is the best way to put it. And what is set to be the main event, and that is the world title match, the finals of the world title tournament, to crown the first or the newest world heavyweight champion, AJ Styles against Seth Rollins. And I think a lot of people are questioning which way this match could go because of Seth's recent affair or dalliance in Hollywood, that people are questioning if Seth could be going the route of not showing up as much. But with the fact that Karrion Kross has shown interest in feuding with AJ Styles, and with the idea of random, and random it is, the idea of random feuds for Karrion Kross, the fact of the matter is, I think it is more likely I think it is more likely that Seth Rollins gets the victory and becomes world champion, even if not for a long time, for the time being, giving him the opportunity that he rightfully earned to call himself a world champion once again. And I also just want to point out, whether they go with Jimmy or Jay as as Roman's rival, whether whether it's whatever the case is, they need to go the route that they're going, where the Usos are on the outs with the bloodline. They need to keep building to that because it's something different, it's something new, and keeps things fresh with the never-ending story of the bloodline. The fact of the matter is, I do believe 100%. I do believe 100% that Roman loses tonight, but will not take the fall. Roman loses tonight, but will not take the fall. Or in some way, shape, or form, maybe they do a dusty finish. Either way, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, it would be a mistake, and I will not back off that. It will be a mistake if Kevin and Sami do not leave Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, as the world tag team champions. With that being said, though, that is it for this show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Again, let's go through this quick. Rollins, Owens and Zayn, Gunther, Brock, Asuka, Rhea, and Becky as the matches as my predictions for Night of Champions. Let me know yours down in the comment section below, and do not forget that Night of Champions is set to take place 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which means it would be 4 p.m. Pacific Time. I do have to guess. But it is the first show in Jeddah, and it is also Sami Zayn's first show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The fact of the matter is, it's going to be an interesting event. Night of Champions, tonight on Peacock, as WWE's next premium live event. With that being said, though, that is it for me, and I will see you in the next